On a cold November evening in 1982, Sylvester James Jr. was facing the toughest reality of his music career. He had begun experiencing serious financial disputes with Fantasy Records, the company he had worked with for 4 years. A detailed examination of financial records had revealed shocking results. The company owed him $218,112.50, but had only paid him $20,000. This figure wasn't just a number. It was proof of how revenues from worldwide hits like "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real" had been concealed. The remaining $198,112.50 was missing. Sylvester faced a major decision: whether to fight this injustice. This story wasn't just about money. It was documented proof of how the music industry systematically exploited artists of color in the late 1970s. Maybe you danced to Sylvester's songs back then. Did it ever occur to you that the creator of that music was fighting such a huge injustice? Sylvester's struggle was the visible part of an injustice that thousands of artists experienced during that period but couldn't speak out about. But the most shocking aspect of the story was the details of how this exploitation was organized and what happened in the process before Sylvester realized it. Today, as we tell this story, we'll shed light on the dark side of the music industry, because this isn't just Sylvester's story. It's also the story of every artist who fought alone against the system. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because in the coming minutes we'll discover the unknown details of this financial dispute and its consequences that changed music history. In October 1977, Sylvester James Jr. thought he was getting the biggest opportunity of his life. While being hosted by company executives at Fantasy Records' modern Berkeley office, the 3-album contract on the table seemed to open the gates of heaven for him. Harvey Fuqua, as a former Motown producer, had an undisputed reputation in the music industry and was making big promises to Sylvester. The contract terms seemed so attractive that Sylvester didn't even feel the need to examine the details thoroughly before signing. The first album's production budget would be $50,000. It would be recorded at Oakland's best facilities, and distribution would be nationwide. At that time, disco music was rapidly rising, and Fantasy Records didn't want to stay out of this trend. The company had become famous with rock music, but they saw a new goldmine in Sylvester's unique voice. The commitments given to Sylvester during contract negotiations were magnificent. Royalties would be shared transparently, sales figures would be reported regularly, and the artist would maintain his own creative control rights. Everything looked perfect on paper. But in those days, Sylvester didn't yet know the traps that major record companies hid in fine print. Harvey Fuqua's approach to Sylvester was professional. His place in music history with his Motown background was undisputed, and he expressed happiness about working with Sylvester. This interest and attention flattered the young artist's pride. Fuqua's studio experience and musical vision offered an ideal combination for shaping Sylvester's raw talents. In meetings held before starting to record the first album, Fuqua listened to Sylvester's musical ideas and contributed to the project. This professional environment was a brand new experience for Sylvester. After the contract was signed, radical changes began in Sylvester's life. He was now a professional recording artist, and this changed everything from his daily routines to his social circle. Small club performances in the Castro area gave way to major studio projects. His meeting with Martha Wash and Izora Rhodes also took place during this process, and the duo known as 2 Tons O' Fun provided the perfect harmony to support Sylvester's voice. Their first rehearsal sessions as a trio were so successful that even Fantasy Records management was surprised. When studio work began, Sylvester was truly happy. Fantasy Studios' state-of-the-art recording equipment captured his voice with a clarity he had never heard before. Thanks to multi-track recording systems, he could process vocal layers separately and create harmonies of his own voice. The arrangements developed under Harvey Fuqua's direction masterfully combined Sylvester's gospel-rooted vocal techniques with modern disco rhythms. After each recording session, Sylvester returned home, feeling that his biggest dreams for the future were about to come true. The release of the Step 2 album became a turning point in Sylvester's life. Songs like You Make Me Feel Mighty Real and Dance Disco Heat achieved great success not only in America, but worldwide. The songs that rose to number 1 on the Billboard Dance Club Songs chart made Sylvester an international star. The album's gold certification seemed to solidify his place in the music industry. Concert offers from around the world, from London to Tokyo, began to come in. During the months when these successes were happening, Sylvester thought that his agreement with Fantasy Records was such a right decision. The album's commercial success was also supported by numbers. Step 2, which achieved sales of 500,000 copies in America, also hit significant numbers in international markets. In England, the Do You Wanna Funk single rose to 32nd place, while in Australia it reached 24th place. During European tours, Sylvester witnessed the enthusiasm of thousands of fans at concerts he gave at London's Heaven Super Club. This international recognition represented the brightest period of his musical career. But right at this time, visible inconsistencies began to emerge in the company's financial reports. Although Fantasy Records sales reports to Sylvester seemed normal at first glance, experienced eyes could notice the suspicious aspects of these figures. While it was announced that the album had received gold certification, the royalty amounts paid to Sylvester were not proportional to this success. When the percentage rates specified in the contract were applied, the amount Sylvester should have received should have been much higher. But Sylvester, who had not yet become suspicious in those days, accepted the company's explanations. Vague explanations about production costs and other deductions were used to hide the real figures. During this period, there were also major changes in Sylvester's daily life. His home in the Castro area was now constantly under siege from visitors. People from the music industry, journalists, and fans came to see him. In this intensity, he had very little time to follow financial details. Harvey Fuqua's advice seemed logical. Focus on music and leave commercial matters to the company. During this period, Sylvester preferred to focus on his creativity, leaving commercial matters to the company. This sense of trust formed the foundation of the disappointment he would experience in the future. In the days following the proud evening in 1979, when he received the key to the city from San Francisco, Sylvester began to ask more detailed questions about financial matters. If you were also into disco during that period, you'll understand how painful this story is. While he was at the peak of his success, the fact that his income was not at the levels he expected began to make him think. Especially the way revenues from international sales were reported was unclear. The intense interest he saw during his European concerts and album sales figures didn't match the figures reported by Fantasy Records. For the first time, serious doubts began to enter his mind. But the really shocking thing hadn't emerged yet. The increase in these suspicions was also influenced by warnings from experienced friends in the music industry, especially when he began working with Patrick Cowley on electronic music. Cowley's previous experiences had warned Sylvester. Cowley talked about the creativity of major record companies in making deductions from artists under the name of costs. He explained how artists' royalty revenues were eroded under items like production costs, marketing expenses, and distribution commissions. These conversations caused Sylvester to question his relationship with Fantasy Records. Although the Stars album released in 1980 was also commercially successful, the amount that reached Sylvester was again below his expectations. This time, he decided to ask more detailed questions. The detailed reports he requested from Fantasy Records' accounting department confirmed his suspicions. There were unexplainable differences between album sales figures and the royalty amounts paid to him. It was seen that a large portion of the revenues obtained from international sales were deducted under the name of distribution costs. Sylvester's decision to get professional help on this matter had disturbed Fantasy Records management. The company stated that such detailed examination was not necessary. Harvey Fuqua also thought differently about this matter, but Sylvester was now looking at such approaches with suspicion. He was beginning to learn the realities of the music industry. Thanks to the professional help Sylvester received on financial matters, detailed financial documents were requested from Fantasy Records. The company's approach to this matter showed the seriousness of the problem. Maybe you've had a similar experience in your business life in that when there's a delay when you request documents, there's usually a problem. The detailed examination of financial records revealed important results. But first, you need to know this. This wasn't just something that happened to Sylvester. In the 1980s, countless artists in the music industry experienced similar situations. The actual revenues obtained from Sylvester's songs were much higher than the figures reported to him. The royalty revenues that You Make Me Feel Mighty Real alone obtained worldwide were more than twice the total amount Fantasy Records paid to Sylvester. Commissions obtained from international distribution agreements had been accumulated in company accounts without Sylvester's knowledge. Radio broadcast royalties, digital licensing revenues, and reprint earnings were in an unreported state. The analysis of the items the company showed as expenses revealed inconsistencies. Different calculations were seen in financial records. It was determined that expenses made for Sylvester's album were reported mixed with other projects. As a result of the examination, the amount unpaid to Sylvester reached $218,112.50. The magnitude of this amount was important not only financially, but also morally. In 1981, this amount was more than a middle-class family's 5-year income in San Francisco. Even the value of Sylvester's home in the Castro area was below this amount. This discovery changed Sylvester's view of the music industry. The financial dispute between Harvey Fuqua and Sylvester had now reached dimensions that could no longer be hidden. The main claim of $218,112.50 was being considered together with interest and other elements. The amounts the company took from Sylvester and didn't pay him were now clearly evident. This struggle was not just Sylvester's individual problem, but also a fight against injustice in the music industry. Fantasy Records' approach was based on denial. The company claimed that all payments were made in accordance with contract terms and that cost deductions were industry standard. Sylvester's demands were characterized as excessive. This approach was one of the classic tactics that big companies used against small artists during that period. The powerful side tried to wear down the powerless one both financially and psychologically. This process created great stress in Sylvester's life. While trying to continue his musical career on one hand, he had to deal with these financial problems on the other. During this period, the musical work he did with Patrick Cowley had become a breathing space for him. He tried to escape from the stress of the financial struggle by taking refuge behind the electronic sounds of high NRG music. The prolongation of this process also negatively affected Sylvester's financial situation. At the same time, the dispute with Fantasy Records had also disrupted his new projects. Other record companies were hesitant to work with Sylvester before the financial problem was resolved. This situation put him in a difficult position both financially and creatively. If you're over 45, you may have experienced similar injustices in the workplace. You know that feeling, how helpless you feel when you can't get what's rightfully yours. Sylvester was experiencing the same emotions, but he chose not to give up. Finally, the financial dispute between Fantasy Records and Sylvester was resolved. The inconsistencies in the company's financial records were now too clear to deny. There was definitive evidence, especially regarding the concealment of international sales revenues. In this situation, company management had to accept their financial responsibilities. The resolution process took a long time. While Fantasy Records initially offered a low amount of payment, Sylvester demanded full compensation. The details of the final agreement weren't shared with the public, but it was known that a significant amount was paid to Sylvester. Additionally, the company committed to being more transparent in future royalty payments. This resolution was both a victory and a disappointment for Sylvester. Although he had achieved an important financial gain, he was aware that he couldn't achieve complete justice. The payment he received was a significant amount for that day's value, but Sylvester's real loss wasn't just financial. His trust in the music industry had been shaken, and he had painfully learned the true nature of artist-company relationships. This experience would affect all his future business decisions. After the completion of the agreement, Fantasy Records described the situation as a commercial dispute in its statement to the media. The company announced that there were no legal problems left between them and Sylvester, and that they had found a solution in a friendly manner. This statement used diplomatic language that covered up the facts. Sylvester preferred to remain silent during this process. Instead of sharing his experience in detail with the public, he chose to focus on the future. But if you think the story ends here, you're wrong. The effects of this struggle on the music industry would be much greater. Sylvester's struggle with Fantasy Records created significant repercussions in the music industry. This financial dispute created awareness about artist rights and encouraged other musicians in similar situations. Especially LGBT+ artists and minority musicians began to be more careful against companies exploiting them. After this event, developments occurred in the direction of more detailed regulation of royalty rights clauses in artist-company contracts. One of the long-term effects of this event was the increased demand for financial transparency in the music industry. Artists now began to behave more consciously about getting legal consultants before signing contracts. Civil society organizations took action to develop protection mechanisms, especially for small and independent artists. Sylvester's struggle was one of the steps taken toward making the industry more fair. It was observed that Fantasy Records began to behave more carefully in artist relations after this financial dispute. The company reviewed its financial reporting systems to avoid encountering similar problems. This change benefited not only Sylvester, but also other artists working with the company. This transformation in the industry contributed to all actors, both small and large, behaving more professionally. This financial struggle caused important changes in Sylvester's character. The pure artist who had previously focused entirely on his music now became a knowledgeable and careful professional in commercial matters as well. In his subsequent projects, he personally examined contract terms and demanded detailed information on financial matters. This experience taught him the importance of having business intelligence along with artistic talent. This increase in awareness about financial matters also affected Sylvester's musical decisions. Now, when choosing which projects to participate in, he evaluated not only creative criteria but also financial conditions. Although this approach was criticized by some friends as commercial, Sylvester argued that this was a necessity for survival. He believed that artists, like other professionals, needed to protect their rights. After the Fantasy Records struggle, Sylvester's reputation in the music industry increased. He began to be recognized as a principled artist who fought against injustice. This image also strengthened his leadership position within the LGBT+ community. He became a figure to be emulated not only in musical, but also in social struggles. This transformation also changed his general life philosophy. Sylvester's struggle against Fantasy Records is still used as a reference point in today's music industry. Experts working on artist rights use this financial dispute as a precedent to fight in similar situations. Especially with the widespread adoption of the streaming economy today, the issue of protecting artists' copyrights has become even more critical. Although the modern music industry has solved most of the problems Sylvester experienced, new technologies have also brought new forms of exploitation. Artists are still fighting similar battles on issues such as streaming platforms, revenue distribution models, and social media platforms' music usage policies. Sylvester's struggle in 1982 also inspires today's artists. The fantasy record struggle had been a turning point in Sylvester's life. This struggle had taught him important lessons not only about financial rights, but also about how to deal with life's injustices. When he died of AIDS in 1988, one of the most important legacies he left behind was that this struggle served as an example. His financial struggle had become a symbol of the search for justice in the music industry. In San Francisco's Castro area, there are still venues that keep Sylvester's memory alive today. When his music plays in these venues, not only his artistic but also his struggle for a just world is remembered. The story of the fantasy record struggle continues to be told as a legend that teaches new generation artists how to stand against the system. When music historians examine this financial dispute, they emphasize that Sylvester didn't just defend his individual rights, but also took a stand on behalf of all marginalized artists. The struggle given against the systematic exploitation faced by LGBT+ artists, minority musicians, and independent creators during that period was one of the important steps taken toward the democratization of the music industry. Today, when the song "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real" plays, we remember not only dancing, but also the struggle for justice behind that music. Sylvester's victory against fantasy records has reached today as a legacy as valuable as his musical heritage. Whenever artists seek their rights, whenever creators struggle against the system, the courage Sylvester showed continues to guide the way. The $218,112.50 claim wasn't just a number. It was a symbol of an artist knowing his own worth, not bowing to injustice, and his determination to fight against unfairness. The determination Sylvester showed in this financial struggle was no different from the courage in his stage performances. Just as in music, he never gave up being authentic while defending his financial rights. Finally, the fantasy record struggle had taught Sylvester this: real victory wasn't just winning, but fighting for what's right. This struggle had strengthened his character, solidified his position in the music industry, and allowed him to leave a legacy that would serve as an example for future generations. The search for financial justice ultimately served to protect his artistic legacy as well. This story shows us that artists must be not only creative but also conscious individuals who protect their own rights. Sylvester's struggle with fantasy records remains valid today as one of music history's most instructive stories. Behind every note, every rhythm, every melody, there is labor. And getting fair compensation for this labor is every artist's right. Sylvester's financial struggle with fantasy records isn't just a story from the past. Similar situations are still happening today, and each of us has something to say about this topic. Maybe you've also gone through a period in your work life where you didn't get what you deserved. Perhaps you didn't see the full value of a project you worked on, or maybe you didn't receive the expected value from work you put effort into. What memories came to mind after watching this story? Because what Sylvester experienced isn't unique to the music industry. Similar injustices can happen in every sector, in every profession. What matters is how we react when we encounter these situations. The reason we share these kinds of stories on our channel isn't just to tell the past. It's also to share our present experiences and learn from each other. If you've experienced a similar situation, would you consider sharing it with us in the comments? Others' experiences can be valuable for all of us. The topics we're especially curious about are: what was the biggest injustice you faced in your work life? How did you deal with this situation? Did you choose to fight like Sylvester, or did you follow a different path? And looking back today, are you satisfied with the decisions you made during that period? We know these questions aren't easy, because all of us have such difficult periods in our lives. But when we share these experiences, it becomes a kind of therapy for ourselves and can be a guide for others. Also, what do you think about Sylvester's music? Which of his songs appeals to you the most? What do you feel when you hear "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real"? Did you know there was such a struggle behind this music? We're eagerly waiting for your comments, because this channel isn't just a place where we tell stories. It's also a community we build together with you. Every comment you make, every share you make strengthens this community. If this story resonated with you too, don't forget to like our video and share it with your friends. Because such stories need to reach more people. Maybe this story you share can give courage to someone in a similar situation. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because many more unknown stories from music history are waiting for you. See you in our next video.